Hi, this is Don Farber with VineyardSoft Corporation, and I'd like to welcome you to this first training session on event design in the KnowledgeSync solution. Now, prior to continuing with this course, we strongly recommend that you have viewed the entire set of training courses on query designing for the KnowledgeSync solution, as queries are an integral part of every event. Now we're going to continue our work in our ERP application. That is, using KnowledgeSync to monitor our ERP or accounting system for a variety of business conditions, such as the ones you see on the right-hand side of my window. I want to start off by discussing this list, as events that you've got designed will be listed for you in alphabetic order with one exception. And that is that those events that are currently flagged as active will be listed prior to those events that are inactive. And your way of knowing very easily whether an event is active or not is by looking for the asterisk in position 1 of the event's description. Those events that are active will be listed prior to those events that are inactive. So let's double click on our one active event and talk about the first step in event design, the description tab. Every event requires a description, and we recommend that you come up with a standard naming convention for your events. In our case, we've begun each event with the name of the object of data that KnowledgeSync is monitoring, in this case, invoices. We've then followed that with a description of the business condition that KnowledgeSync is monitoring for, in our case, those invoices that are overdue. We do recommend that you keep the overall length of your event descriptions moderately brief, as that will make it easier to locate and work with events in both the Event Manager and the Graphic Navigator modules in KnowledgeSync. Now let's move ahead to the Lookup Key field. Normally, every event in KnowledgeSync is automatically executed and checked by KnowledgeSync according to a recurring schedule. This event uses a schedule that runs every day at 9 in the morning, and you might have events that run more or less frequently based upon the conditions that you're having KnowledgeSync check for. But every now and then, and this is truly in rare situations, you might have the need to have a KnowledgeSync event called from an external business application that your organization is using. If so, you need a way to identify the event in KnowledgeSync that you want your external application to call. And that is what the field called Lookup Key is for. This is an optional field as it's not often used, but if you do find the need to call for the execution of a KnowledgeSync event from an external application, you will also have the need to give each event a unique name by which it can be called. And that's exactly what the Lookup Key is for. We might, for example, give this event a lookup key of INV_ODO. And that way, if I do need to call this event from outside of the KnowledgeSync application, I have a way of uniquely identifying this particular event. For more details on this function, please refer to the Utilities chapter of the KnowledgeSync manual, as it describes how to call the execution of a KnowledgeSync event from outside of the KnowledgeSync system. Now let's move ahead to the field called Priority. Although it sounds terribly important, in truth, priority is less important perhaps than you'd think. As we've mentioned, every event in KnowledgeSync has a schedule under which it's submitted. The priority value comes into play only if you have multiple events that are due to be submitted at the same time of day, such as 2, 3, or 4 events that are all scheduled to run every day at 9 o'clock in the morning. Under such a circumstance, you might wish to control which of those 3 or 4 events is submitted first, and that's what the priority controls. It allows you to control the order of submission for events where you have multiple events that are scheduled to run at the same time of day. The highest priority is 0, and by default, every new event will be assigned a medium priority of 5. Now let's move ahead to the checkbox called Active. We discussed active earlier and indicated that each event could be either flagged as active, meaning KnowledgeSync is able to currently check for this event's conditions, or inactive. The one additional note I'd like to pass on about this option is that you can say that an event is inactive and yet still have the ability to run the event manually. And you can do so simply by selecting the event that you wish to run and then choosing the option called Schedule This Now. This option will run this event once right now. Let's go back into this event and talk about the remaining two checkboxes. The middle checkbox is a very important one, and it's called Repeat Notification for Triggered Items. In order to understand this option, it's worth going back to discuss the three types of business conditions, or the three types of queries that you can design in KnowledgeSync. They are record level conditions, such as invoices that are overdue. Secondly, aggregate conditions, such as knowing when there's more than $5,000 or $10,000 worth of overdue invoices in your ERP application. And thirdly, value change queries, such as identifying when a customer's credit limit has changed. The option called Repeat Notification for Triggered Items applies only to record level queries, such as the event we're currently working on uses, because this event is looking for individual records, invoices that are overdue. Now, in the case of this event, which is running every day at 9 o'clock in the morning, once this event runs and it locates, let's say, 2 or 3 overdue invoices and it sends an alert, the next day that this event runs, you need to decide whether or not you still want KnowledgeSync to send alerts about those same invoices if in fact they are still overdue. And if the answer to that question is yes, I do want to send repeat notifications as long as records continue to meet an event's criteria, then you do indeed want to put a check mark in this box. Now, of course, there are situations whereby you would not want KnowledgeSync to repeat notifications. A prime example of that would be an event that sends an alert to management about newly placed sales orders. Once the event sends an alert about a given sales order to your management, you do not need KnowledgeSync to send another alert about that same sales order. And so that would be a scenario whereby repeat notification is turned off. Now, if you have repeat notification turned off, it is absolutely essential that the query that this event is using, and we can skip over to our Queries tab for just a moment, it is very important that this query have a unique column defined within it. In this particular query's case, I happen to know that the unique column for this query is the invoice number. And the reason why that's so important is that you need to give KnowledgeSync a way to remember what records have already met an event's criteria. Because if you don't want KnowledgeSync to repeat notifications, somehow you've got to give KnowledgeSync the ability to know what records have already met an event's criteria. And that's why the unique designation within a query is so important. So as long as your query has a unique column identified, you will be able to say, no, I do not wish to repeat notifications. Please note that if your event is using a query that does not have a unique column identified, KnowledgeSync will automatically operate as if this event has repeat turned on, as KnowledgeSync has no way to remember what records have already met that event's criteria. And I'd like to give you one final note about this bit of functionality. And that is that KnowledgeSync itself will keep track of whether a given record in an application is or is not meeting an event's criteria. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you have an event that checks for customers who are on credit hold. And let's say that that event is running daily. And let's say that on a given week on Monday, you've got a company, Acme Incorporated, who is on credit hold. And so the event runs and it sends an alert, probably to the appropriate sales rep, that Acme Inc. is on credit hold. Now, chances are that you don't want to, again on Tuesday, tell the sales rep that Acme Incorporated is still on hold. You've already told them that they're on hold back on Monday. So you would probably have this event configured to not repeat notification. Tuesday rolls around, Acme Inc. is still on hold, the event runs and does not send another notification about Acme to the same salesperson. Now let's say on Wednesday, Acme Inc. sends in a payment and is taken off of credit hold. When the KnowledgeSync event that checks for customers who are on credit hold runs on Wednesday, KnowledgeSync will notice that Acme Inc. no longer meets this event's criteria, and KnowledgeSync will, within its own database, remove the triggered record for Acme Inc. for this particular event. Now consider on Thursday, let's say that Acme Inc. places another big order with you and is newly placed on credit hold. So when the KnowledgeSync credit hold event runs on Thursday, it will see that Acme Inc. is newly placed on credit hold and thus will indeed send the corresponding alert to Acme Inc.'s sales rep. So again, even though you say repeat notification no, KnowledgeSync is very good at keeping track of whether a record meets an event's criteria, no longer meets the event's criteria, and then newly again meets those criteria. All right, let's finish up by talking about the last checkbox on the description tab called Keep Only Last Checked Record in the Monitor. Now, when an event is submitted by KnowledgeSync, it goes through 3 stages. It starts off as pending, and then when the event successfully runs, it is referred to as checked. Checked means that the event has successfully run. That's all. It does not indicate whether or not the event was met by any matching criteria. If the event was met by matching criteria, the event is referred to as triggered. So once again, there are 3 stages: pending, checked, and triggered. And KnowledgeSync will always keep track of every time any event has been triggered. That's automatic. However, it's quite possible for KnowledgeSync to run an event multiple times, to check it multiple times, but actually not have the event triggered. And so what this option box is asking you is it all right for KnowledgeSync to keep track of only the last time that this event was checked? That helps keep the amount of history that KnowledgeSync retains down to a minimum, and thus we do recommend that this option be checked on. Again, KnowledgeSync will always keep track of every time an event has been triggered, regardless of the setting of this checkbox. We do recommend that this be checked on. That way you can go into the KnowledgeSync monitor and always see the last time the event was checked and always see all of the times the event has met the event's criteria or been triggered. Now, before we finish up this training session, I do just want to take a moment to talk about the information in the lower half of the description tab. This information shows you when this event was created, who it was created by, and the last time this event was changed. And the reason why this is important is not only for your own knowledge when you come in here, but the fact that KnowledgeSync itself can monitor the status of the events that you've configured within it. So if you're concerned to know about whether someone has added a new event to the KnowledgeSync application or has changed an event that you've created or that you've configured, KnowledgeSync has the ability to monitor itself. We refer to this as the watchdog component of KnowledgeSync, and it is a free component in KnowledgeSync. In fact, the watchdog component comes with a pre-configured set of KnowledgeSync conditions that KnowledgeSync itself can monitor, and that is a free download from the VineyardSoft website. So once again, if you're interested in having KnowledgeSync monitor itself, download the Watchdog Event Pack from the KnowledgeSync website. Okay, let's exit from this event for right now. Our following training course will take us into the ensuing tab called the Queries tab, where you're able to associate one or more queries with a KnowledgeSync event. But for right now, that wraps up this training session on event design in KnowledgeSync. I'd like to thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to working with you in a future KnowledgeSync training session. Thanks very much.